don't go anywhere. Speaking of gasoline, up next we're going to be joined by Julian Brown, a backyard inventor.
I have created Plastiline, a gasoline alternative made from plastic waste. The entire world deserves to know that this thing that we're seeing polluting our world, this thing in our oceans, is not what we've been told it is. Plastic is made of petroleum, and it can be turned back into petroleum.
A 21-year-old black man creates fuel from plastic waste in his backyard, gets millions of followers, receives a six-figure grant, then posts a terrifying warning and disappears. What they don't want you to know is this isn't new.
And today we are about to make history. Are you guys ready? I have brought with me Plastidiezel, a diesel alternative made from plastic waste that has just passed and has been scientifically proven to be cleaner than pump diesel. There we are! Yeah.
This is what's been happening to black inventors for centuries. This is the story of Julian Brown, and by the end of this video, you'll understand why his disappearance is part of a much bigger, much darker pattern. Julian Brown wasn't supposed to make it. Born in Duluth, Georgia, no fancy college degree, just a welder's background and hands scarred from years of trial and error. At 17 years old, while most kids were worried about prom, Julian was building something in his backyard that scientists with PhDs couldn't figure out. He took plastic waste, the kind choking our oceans and piling up in landfills, and turned it into gasoline, diesel, and jet fuel. He called it Plastiline. His process used microwave pyrolysis, a technique that breaks down plastic polymers into vaporized petroleum using microwave energy powered by solar panels. This wasn't some science fair project. This was real fuel that could power cars, trucks, planes. Scientists who tested his diesel couldn't believe it. One researcher said the fuel was surprisingly well distilled and burned cleaner than traditional diesel. This was a kid who taught himself chemistry and engineering through YouTube videos and pure determination.
I don't have time to go to university and get started in 4 years. In 4 years, I need to have my company built and the machines heading out there, right? So I've been a graduate of high school for probably about 2.5 years now, and I've made immense progress, 5 prototypes, right? And, you know, the traditional route, I may not even be getting started into graduate school. So it was just a matter of timing and efficiency.
By early 2025, Julian had almost 2 million followers watching him work. His TikTok videos showed him filling up engines with fuel he made from trash. Reddit co-founder Alexis Ohanian believed in him so much, he handed Julian a $100,000 grant, no strings attached. Forbes wrote entire features about him. He became a 776 Foundation Climate Fellow. Everyone wanted a piece of Julian Brown. But here's what they don't tell you about being a young black inventor with a world-changing idea. The spotlight isn't always protection. Sometimes it's a target. On June 14, 2025, Julian posted something that should have made national news. A video of a helicopter circling above him at night, spotlight shining directly down on him. He was in Alabama, in the middle of nowhere, working on his reactor, and somehow this helicopter kept finding him. He posted it with a simple caption: "A secret helicopter found circled me in the middle of nowhere, and it gets even scarier." Then on June 25th, he said something that still sends chills down people's spines. "I know I'm not gonna live long. That's why I put every day, every hour, every minute into building."
I know that I'm not gonna live long. And that's why I put every day, every hour, every minute into building, into growing. Why am I out here working on this plastic into fuel reactor I've been working on for 5 years? Since I was 17. Why am I out here in 100-degree weather? Why am I out here despite being falsely accused and reported to the EPA and the IRS? Why am I out here despite weird black helicopters that turn off their radar transponder circling me 6 times at night? Why am I out here sleeping in my van, crazy humidity, mosquitoes, gnats flying in, and yet I still do it? Why am I out here despite having to drive 4 hours every time I want to work on this machine, because when I was doing it in my parents' backyard, I blew myself up and I had to go to the hospital for 2nd-degree burn surgery. I do this because this is my mission that I've assigned myself to. I do this because I do not fear death.
This wasn't dramatic. This was a 21-year-old black man who understood exactly what he was up against. He knew his invention could destroy a $4 trillion industry. He knew what happens to people who threaten that kind of money. And he knew what happens to black inventors who get too successful. The comments section filled with worried followers. People begged him to be careful, to get security, to stop posting his location. But Julian kept working. He drove 8 hours round trip every time he wanted to test his machine because he'd already been hospitalized once from an explosion that gave him second-degree burns. He needed burn surgery.
That boy gave that boy fentanyl. Look at him. I'm being cooked alive by some damn invisible fire. The Holy Ghost. Boy, the Holy Ghost is burning me right. I can't even see the fire.
Look at this bloody bollocks, man. I'm in Church's Chicken Deluxe.
Had to relocate his entire operation 4 hours from home just to work safely. And still, he kept going. Then came July 9th, 2025, his final post. Julian sat in a car, looking around nervously. His voice was different, urgent. Listen, everybody. I can't go into too much detail, but there is some very, very odd stuff going on. I'm certainly under attack right now in many different ways. I just want everybody to know, so just kind of have your eyes open. In the caption, he wrote in all caps, "Something is happening. Keep me in your prayers, please. Screen record this. I don't know." And then silence. Complete radio silence. The kid who posted almost every single day just vanished.
Alright, listen everybody. I can't go into too much detail, but there is some very, very odd stuff going on. I'm certainly under attack.
His 1.7 million Instagram followers started panicking. His TikTok went dark. No updates, no stories, nothing. It was like Julian Brown had been erased. The response was immediate and massive. A subreddit called "Where is Julian Brown?" exploded overnight with thousands of members demanding answers. People tagged the FBI, local police, anyone who might help. Conspiracy theories flew everywhere. Was it big oil? The government? Corporate hitmen? For 2 full weeks, the silence was deafening. Then on July 28th, Julian's mother, Nia Brown, finally spoke to the Daily Mail. Her statement was short and terrifying. "I can confirm Julian is safe, but in the best interest of his security, I'm not able to provide any more information. That's it. No details, no location, just confirmation he was alive and in hiding for his own safety." Think about that. A 21-year-old inventor has to go into hiding because he figured out how to turn trash into fuel. In America, in 2025, the Atlanta police confirmed they weren't investigating any missing person case, which meant, officially, nothing was wrong. But everyone knew something was very, very wrong. You don't disappear for 2 weeks, have your mother refuse to say where you are, and call it normal. Finally, on July 30th, Julian came back. He posted a photo with his mom on Instagram. Then on August 1st, he explained, hackers. People who got into his iCloud could watch everything on his phone, see where he was, read every message. Even after he kicked them out of his phone, they still had access to his Instagram. He had to reach out to Meta for help. His cybersecurity team and Meta both told him to go dark for his own protection. So he did.
You see, these hackers, they got into my iCloud, and they were able to basically remotely watch and view my entire phone. I figured out they were in my phone, kicked them out, and they had no more access to my phone, but they still had access to my Instagram somehow. My best guess is that these hackers were using some type of session token because they cloned my iCloud that was having the session tokens connected to my Instagram account. But to be honest, my best guess is yours. So you know what? I know you hackers are watching this right now, so how about you let the world know what you did? And while you're at it, you can also let the world know how all 3 of my microwave irradiated nuts taste in your mouth. And they posted my driver's license 3 days back to back in front of millions of people. And no matter how many times I get in the account, delete the license picture, and then change the password, change two-factor everything, they get back in. And I started to realize, wait a minute, these people have been studying me for 6 months. They have some type of back-end way to get into my account, and they know I'm the type of person to want to share with the world what's going on, keep you guys in the loop, and they're using that against me. So I said, you know what? They're not going to put me in a chess move. I'm going to do the opposite of what they are expecting. I'm going to break their plans by going silent. Since these hackers were exploiting past session tokens associated with my old iCloud they had a control over, the only person that could help me was Meta. My cybersecurity team couldn't. I couldn't help myself. We all know Meta is really slow. I reached out to them, look at these screenshots. They said, okay, this is a specialized case. You may have to wait 24 hours up to 2 weeks. It took 3 weeks, okay? I kept spamming them. Meta, please, Meta, why? What is taking so long? And the breaking point was when I made international news for literally saying and doing nothing because it freaks people out that much. I love you guys so much for all your concern, but that made me say, Meta, look, guys, even if your review is not done, please just let me log back into the account so I can calm down people. And Meta said, okay, we will, but we'll watch. So I made this vague post to my Instagram account yesterday that looks like a hacker on purpose, because the whole world wouldn't know if it was me or a hacker and be on edge, just in case the hackers could get back in and post something crazy. But the hackers knew I made that post and they would try to get in the account again, which they did. They fell for the bait. Look how many times they tried to get it right back into my account minutes after posting it. But this time, Meta was watching. Meta now knows who these people are, and they're still doing the review, and we're gonna get them busted.
But here's the part that should make you angry. This isn't new. This exact pattern, this exact story of brilliant black inventors being silenced, attacked, erased has been happening for over 200 years, and Julian Brown is just the latest name on a very long list. Let's talk about something they don't teach you in school. The real history of black innovation in America, because once you see the pattern, you can't unsee it. In 1787, when the US patent system was created, it was technically colorblind. The law didn't explicitly say black people couldn't get patents, but there was a catch. Enslaved people weren't considered citizens, and non-citizens couldn't hold patents. So when enslaved black people invented something, their white owners would just take credit for it, legally steal their inventions, and there was nothing they could do about it. Benjamin Montgomery, born into slavery in 1819, invented a steamboat propeller designed for shallow waters. This was huge. It would have changed river transportation and commerce. He tried to apply for a patent. The patent office rejected him because he was enslaved. Then his owners tried to patent it themselves, claiming they invented it. The patent office rejected them too because they weren't the actual inventors. So this brilliant invention just sat there, unable to be legally recognized because of the color of the inventor's skin. Even after slavery ended, the system found new ways to silence black inventors. Historians believe countless black inventions were stolen by white business partners, employers, or colleagues who simply put their own names on patents. There are silent partnerships where an enslaved person's patent bears a white partner's name. Lost inventions that will never be recovered. Patent lawyer and Professor Shantavia Johnson documented how owners routinely took credit for slave inventions, and the patent office just let it happen. In 1902, a man named Henry Baker worked at the patent office and tried to compile a list of black inventors. He found 370 patents definitively held by black people. In 1913, he searched again and found leads for 1,200 patents, but could only confirm 800 as definitely earned by black inventors. Why? Because many black inventors refused to acknowledge their heritage publicly. They knew publication of that fact might hurt the commercial value of their inventions. Baker believed that perhaps half of all black patents might remain hidden forever in what he called the unbreakable silence of official records. Let that sink in. Half of all black inventions might be lost forever because the inventors had to hide who they were just to sell their products. Thomas Jennings became the first known black inventor to earn a U.S. patent in 1821 for dry cleaning methods. He was free, educated, and ran a successful clothing business in Manhattan. He's the exception that proves the rule. Most black inventors never got that recognition. Lewis Latimer is probably the most important inventor most people have never heard of. When people think of the light bulb, they think Thomas Edison. But here's what they don't tell you. Edison's original light bulb was basically useless. The filament inside burned out in a few days. It was Latimer, a black man born to parents who escaped slavery, who invented a method of manufacturing carbon filaments that made light bulbs actually work for long periods of time. He made electric lighting affordable and practical for everyday people. He literally wrote the first book on electric lighting in 1890. He worked directly with Edison and was the only black person in the inaugural class of Edison pioneers, essentially the Hall of Fame for Edison's colleagues. But when you search for who invented the light bulb, you get Thomas Edison's face, not Lewis Latimer. Latimer also helped Alexander Graham Bell draft the patent for the telephone. Without Latimer's detailed technical drawings, Bell might not have won that patent race. But ask anyone who invented the telephone, and they'll say Alexander Graham Bell, period. Garrett Morgan invented the gas mask. Not just any gas mask, the one that saved lives during World War I and is still the basis for what firefighters use today. On July 25, 1916, there was a massive explosion in a water tunnel being constructed under Lake Erie in Cleveland. Natural gas filled the tunnel. 11 workers died in the initial explosion. Then 2 rescue parties went in without proper equipment and 11 more rescuers died from the toxic fumes. At 3 a.m., 6 hours after the explosion, authorities finally called Garrett Morgan and asked him to bring his safety hood invention. Morgan, his brother Frank, and volunteers arrived wearing their gas masks and descended into that death trap. They rescued more than 20 people, including recovering bodies of those who'd already died. Morgan personally hauled 8 survivors to safety. He even performed mouth-to-mouth resuscitation on one man and inhaled so much toxic gas himself that he needed medical treatment for days afterward. The next day, the New York Times, Los Angeles Times, Chicago Tribune, and other major newspapers all reported the rescue. None of them mentioned Garrett Morgan's name, not one. A white foreman got bonuses, medals, newspaper recognition. Morgan got nothing. When Morgan protested, they told him he didn't risk as much because he had safety equipment. Think about the insanity of that statement. The man invented the equipment, descended into a tunnel that had already killed 22 people, saved 8 lives, and they said he didn't risk enough. Even worse, when people found out the gas mask was invented by a black man, sales plummeted. Morgan's granddaughter Sandra said her family believes sales were strong until buyers discovered the patent holder was black, then the orders dried up. Morgan was so desperate to sell his invention that he hired white actors to pretend to be the inventor, while Morgan disguised himself and demonstrated the product. He had to hide his own identity just to sell his own invention. He removed his first name from the product and just called it the Morgan Safety Hood, so white fire chiefs wouldn't know they were buying from a black inventor. The city of Cleveland didn't officially recognize Morgan's heroism until 1991, 75 years later, when they named a water treatment plant after him. In 2016, 100 years after the rescue, they finally held a ceremony to honor him properly. Mary Kenner holds more patents than any African-American woman. She invented the sanitary belt in 1957, the predecessor to modern menstrual pads. The Sonnet Pack Company contacted her in 1957, excited to market her invention. When they discovered she was black, they declined. Her patent expired because no company would work with her, which meant manufacturers could use and sell her invention without paying her a dime. Gladys West was born in rural Virginia in 1930 and became a pioneering mathematician who laid the foundation for GPS, the global positioning system everyone uses every single day. But most people have no idea who she is. Her contributions to communication technology were revolutionary, but history tried to erase her. Percy LaVon Julian was the grandson of enslaved people who became one of the first African Americans to earn a PhD in chemistry. He was the first black scientist to lead a major corporate research and development laboratory. In 1950, when he moved his family into the mostly white Chicago suburb of Oak Park, his house was firebombed. Twice. His cousin, economist Lisa Cook, later asked the question that haunts every black inventor. Why would I ever invent anything again if I thought doing so would put my life in danger? That's the real question, isn't it? Why would you risk your life to change the world when the world keeps trying to kill you for it? Here's what most people don't understand. It's not just racism for racism's sake. It's about money, control, power. When a black person invents something revolutionary, it threatens the entire system. Not just the industry that might lose profits, but the whole narrative about who's allowed to be a genius, who's allowed to innovate, who's allowed to change the world. Julian Brown's plastiline could make fuel almost free while solving the plastic pollution crisis. That's a direct threat to oil companies worth trillions of dollars. But it's more than that. It's a threat to the idea that only people with fancy degrees from elite universities, only people with millions in funding, only people who look a certain way, can change the world. A black kid with a welding background building a reactor in his backyard that does what billion-dollar research labs can't do. That breaks every rule they've written. It proves that genius doesn't need permission, that innovation doesn't need approval from the gatekeeper, that the next world-changing invention might come from anywhere, from anyone. And that terrifies them. The pattern is always the same. A black inventor creates something that could change everything. They get some recognition. Then the attacks start. Helicopter surveillance, cyber attacks, threats. Sometimes it's overt violence like Percy Julian's house being firebombed. Sometimes it's economic warfare like Mary Kenner's patent being left to expire. Sometimes it's historical erasure like Lewis Latimer being written out of the light bulb story. Sometimes it's just stealing the invention outright like they did to enslaved inventors. But the goal is always the same. Silence the inventor, steal the innovation, maintain control. Let's talk numbers for a second. Research shows that black men and women are significantly less likely than other demographics to earn STEM degrees, receive patents, or commercialize new products. Black scientists and engineers face unconscious bias and outright discrimination in high-tech employment. Black inventor entrepreneurs face persistent difficulties getting funding, getting recognition, getting their ideas taken seriously. Why? Because the system was never designed to support them. It was designed to exclude them. When enslaved people were forbidden from learning to read, it guaranteed their innovations would never be recognized. When free black people could get patents but white employers claimed credit, it guaranteed their names would be erased. When black inventors had to hide their identity to sell their products, it guaranteed they'd never get full credit. When black innovators today face harassment, surveillance, and threats, it guarantees many will give up before they change the world. This isn't ancient history. This is happening right now. Julian Brown in 2025 faced the same threats that Garrett Morgan faced in 1916 and Percy Julian faced in 1950. Different tactics, same strategy. Silence the black genius before they upset the balance of power. The Smithsonian's Lemelson Center has documented this extensively. They found that the long-standing ideal of American inventiveness, the belief that Americans are uniquely enterprising and creative, contains assumptions that historically function to exclude and discount the contributions of marginalized peoples. Dominant notions of invention, which prioritize novelty, profit, efficiency, and ownership, have disregarded the creations of black inventors who worked from different value propositions with different resources under different and often life-threatening circumstances. In other words, the system decides what counts as real innovation, and it's designed so black innovation doesn't count. Julian Brown is still alive. He's still building. He's back on social media, posting videos of plastiline powering engines, talking about expanding his reach, even learning Spanish to reach more people. While he was gone, his GoFundMe exploded from $18,000 to over $30,000. People wanted to support him, protect him, make sure he could keep working. But here's what his story really proves. We're still living in a system that would rather silence black genius than let it flourish. A system that sees a young black man solving two global crises, plastic pollution and fuel scarcity, and responds with surveillance, cyber attacks, and threats instead of celebration and support. Julian didn't invent pyrolyses. He's honest about that. The process has been around for decades, but what he did do was make it accessible, solar-powered, scalable, and cheap enough that anyone could do it. He proved you don't need a massive factory or government funding or corporate backing. You just need knowledge, determination, and the courage to keep building even when helicopters circle your house at night. That's what makes him dangerous. Not because his invention is so revolutionary that no one's ever thought of it, but because he showed everyone it could be done outside the system, without permission, without approval. And that terrifies the people who've spent centuries controlling who gets to innovate and who doesn't. His story also proves something else. The internet can fight back. When Julian disappeared, millions of people refused to let him be erased. They demanded answers. They raised money. They kept his name trending until his mother confirmed he was safe. In previous generations, inventors like Lewis Latimer and Garrett Morgan were erased from history because there was no way for ordinary people to fight back against newspapers and textbooks that left them out. But now we can make sure these stories don't get buried. Julian Brown's story isn't just about one inventor. It's about every black person who ever had a brilliant idea and had to hide it, minimize it, or give credit to someone else just to survive. It's about every patent stolen, every invention claimed by white business partners, every name erased from history books. It's about Augustus Jackson, who invented the modern ice cream manufacturing process in the 1800s, but never got full credit because no one wanted to believe a black man could revolutionize food production. It's about Marie Van Britten Brown, who invented the home security system in 1966, creating the blueprint for every doorbell camera and security system we use today. But most people have never heard of her. It's about Alice Parker, who invented the gas heating furnace in 1919, making central heating possible, filing her patent amid racial tensions and civil unrest. It's about every traffic light you've stopped at because Garrett Morgan invented the 3-position traffic signal that keeps you safe every day. It's about every light in your house because Lewis Latimer made electric lighting practical and affordable. It's about the GPS in your phone because Gladys West made it possible. Black innovation is everywhere. It's in the medicines you take, the technology you use, the safety equipment that protects you, the infrastructure that powers modern life. But the names behind those innovations? They've been systematically erased, stolen, buried. When you erase someone from the past, you erase their influence on the future. You make it harder for the next generation to see themselves as inventors, as innovators, as people who can change the world. You create a system where brilliant black kids grow up thinking they're not smart enough, not capable enough, not worthy enough, because they never see anyone who looks like them celebrated for changing the world. That's the real crime. Not just the stolen patents or the threats or the helicopter surveillance. It's the message it sends to every young black person with a brilliant idea: your genius isn't wanted here. Your innovation is a threat. Stay in your place or face the consequences. Julian Brown is 21 years old. He taught himself chemistry, engineering, and solar energy technology through determination and self-education. He survived second-degree burns and kept working. He faced surveillance, cyber attacks, and threats, and kept building. He went into hiding for his own safety, and when he came back, he got right back to work. That's not just impressive. That's revolutionary. Because every time a young black inventor refuses to be silenced, they break the pattern a little bit more. They prove the system wrong. They show the next generation it's possible. But it shouldn't be this hard. A 21-year-old shouldn't have to choose between changing the world and staying safe. A young inventor shouldn't have to hide his identity, hire white actors to demonstrate his product, or go into hiding because he figured out how to turn trash into fuel. The fact that Julian Brown faced the same threats in 2025 that Garrett Morgan faced in 1916 and Percy Julian faced in 1950 proves we haven't fixed anything. We've just changed the tactics. Physical violence becomes cyber attacks. Stolen patents become corporate espionage. But the goal is the same. Keep black innovation from threatening the status quo. So what do? We tell these stories. We say their names. We support black inventors financially, publicly, loudly. We teach accurate history in schools so kids learn that Lewis Latimer made your lights work, Garrett Morgan made gas masks save lives, and Mary Kenner revolutionized menstrual hygiene. We change the patent system to make it easier for independent inventors to protect their work. We fund black innovation without expecting them to give up ownership or control. We create real protection for inventors who face threats. Most importantly, we refuse to let them be erased. Julian Brown is still building. His plastiline machine still works. He's still working to scale it up, make it more efficient, reach more people. Despite everything, he hasn't stopped. That's the most important part of this story. The system tried to silence him. It failed. Because now millions of people know his name, know his story, know what he's building. And every time someone shares his videos, talks about his invention, or supports his GoFundMe, they're saying, not this time. You're not going to erase this one. That's how we break the pattern. Not just by protecting one inventor, but by refusing to let any of them be forgotten again. By teaching complete history. By supporting black innovation. By calling out the harassment, the theft, the erasure when it happens. Because Julian Brown isn't just an inventor. He's proof that the next world-changing idea might come from anywhere. From a kid in Georgia with a welding background and a backyard full of plastic waste. From someone without permission, without approval, without a billion-dollar lab. And that's exactly what they're afraid of. Because once everyone knows that genius doesn't need their permission, that innovation doesn't need their approval, the whole system of control starts to crumble. Julian Brown showed us it's possible. Now it's up to us to make sure his story, and the stories of every black inventor who came before him, never get buried again. The next time you turn on a light, drive through a traffic signal, or use GPS on your phone, remember, a black inventor made that possible, and they probably had to fight like hell just to get credit for it. If you want to know what happens next in Julian Brown's story, stay tuned.